Alright, time for part 2 of our tutorial. So just to refresh your memory, we have a lobster that we put in the world, and we're going to move him around. So I'm hitting the keys to move him around. If we go into some code, this is why our lobster is moving so slowly, because here I'm saying move by 1. Now, one little trick I'll teach right now is if I want to I have to keep changing all of these numbers in order to make that lobster move. So, excuse me. Instead of that, what I'm going to do is go up here, I'm going to make an integer variable. And I'm going to call it move speed. And I'm going to set that equal to 5. And so now, if I take that and put it here, 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 and here, that's like saying let's move it by 5. But now if I decide, you know what, I want to change it to like 7, all I have to do is change that one number. So that'll make life a little bit easier in the future. So if I go back here, put a lobster in the world, run it, you can see now my lobster is moving faster because I'm moving 5 pixels at a time instead of 1. Okay. Now, let's see if we can get a dolphin moving around the screen. So I'm going to get my dolphin, and I took out the code we did for it last time so we could start fresh. What I want my dolphin to do is to move in a diagonal fashion around the screen. So essentially I want the dolphin to go and bounce off that wall and bounce off that wall and just keep bouncing off of walls. Okay? So let's start just by getting the dolphin moving. So we write that set location thing like we did yesterday, and let's just say move the x coordinate by 3 and move the y coordinate by 5 or something like that. Okay, so if we do this and we put a dolphin in the world, then we get that kind of thing. Okay, so we need to think about what do we want to happen if the dolphin hits the bottom. So we run it, and by the way, I've kind of neglected this act button. If I click act, then it kind of goes in like frame forward, like really slow motion. So as soon as the dolphin gets to that point right there, where it hits the bottom, we want it to bounce and go up, right? So how do we do that? Well, here's the problem. Every single time what we're doing to the y is we're adding 5. But that's not necessarily true. We don't always want to add 5. We only want to add 5 if we want the dolphin to go down. And so here, I'm going to make another variable. So I'm going to call a variable int, and I'm going to call this one ymove, like that. And I'm going to set this one to be 5. So this one is a variable that's going to control how much I'm going to move in the y direction. So in other words, the up-down direction. Okay? And what's going to happen is I'm going to run this, but right after this, I'm going to put a line of code that says if I get the y coordinate and it's really big, so let's say that it's like above 350. And don't forget, the size of or the height of our window is 400. So that means if it's kind of close to the bottom of the screen. So if I notice that the dolphin's getting really close to the bottom of the screen, then instead of moving by 5, I actually want to move by -5. And here's where a little math trick comes in. We're going to say ymove equals ymove times -1. So that looks complicated, but ask yourself, what happens to a number when you multiply it by -1? Well, it changes. It goes to negative. So if this works properly, we're going to set the location, and then if we find out that the y variable is higher than 350, we're going to switch, and ymove should make it bounce back up. Let's see if it works. See? There we go. It worked. Now here's the thing. It's going to get back to the top of the screen, and we're going to have to make another change, right? So let's do that one more time. We run it, and our dolphin goes, oh, there it is, and there's the switch. But now I need another switch to happen at the top. So I'm going to go back into my dolphin and say, okay, well, this is one case where I want to switch Y move and have it go from 5 to -5, but there's another case. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste, and I'm going to say the other case is if the Y coordinate gets too low. So let's say if it gets below 30. Okay? And now let's see what happens if we run this. And I'm going to change this X to a 1 just so we can have it bouncing more and more in the Y. So I run this, okay? Bounce, 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 and so on. So what's happening is it keeps switching. -5, 5, -5, 5, -5, 5. And you can see we haven't done the X yet, but it's going to work the same way. Okay? So I go back to the dolphin, and here's my code, and it works. So I don't want to mess with it too much. Excuse me. But just to clean it up a little bit, I can actually compare more than one thing at once. So this is me comparing the current Y position to 350, and then I do another one that compares the current Y position to 30. I can do that all at once. So I'm going to take this, cut it, I'm going to paste it up here, and right here I'm going to put these two vertical lines like that. And I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to put all of this stuff in one big bracket. And so what this says is if this or this, do this. Okay? If this or this, then do this. So it's still going to work the exact same way. I've just put all of that into one statement. So bounce, bounce, 5, -5, 5, -5, 5, -5, and it switches back and forth over and over and over again. Okay? And so now if I put both of these things on the screen, I've got movement with my lobster, and I've got automated movement with my dolphin. And if they hit each other, nothing happens yet, but that's going to be where we're going to go with this. Stuff's going to happen when we hit things. Okay? So, if I go back to the dolphin, I've done the Y. I'm going to leave it up to you to try to figure out how to do the X. And the good news is the X is pretty much the exact same thing. So you're going to make an X move variable. You're going to replace that, and then you're going to make a very similar statement here. Okay? One last thing before I leave you on this tutorial. It becomes a bit of a pain in the butt to try to keep putting these back on the screen, holding down Shift all the time. So if you go to My World, then what you can do, in the My World section, after Super, you can put Add Object, and then you can say, I want to make a new lobster, and I want to start that lobster at, say, I don't know, 100, 100. Those are the coordinates. And I also want to add a new dolphin at, say, 300, 300. And if I do that, then I don't have to keep worrying about adding those things over and over and over again. Okay? All right, so you know you were good to go if you have your dolphin, or your enemy, I should say, moving automatically and bouncing off all of the walls. Okay? Good luck.